Hello there, name's Rolly, Z01BQD. Now listen, over the last little while, a number of people have asked me, well, what are some of the little tips and tricks I get up to with when using a DXCommander? And yes, I do. Before I go out onto a parks or a SOTA expedition, I do make sure that I have a lot of stuff pre-prepared before I go. For instance, the length of the stay wires and the radials and all that sort of stuff, that's all pre-made and pre-cut. And so I've been asked, well, what do you do with that? Well, let's start off with the stays, shall we? I mean, we can get pretty rough and ready if you really want, and just, well, what I do is just simply tie a knot at the end of the stay wire, so that we've got something that I can actually take one of these aluminium pegs, put through, and that goes out on the end of my stay wire. And that's it. That really helps a lot to be able to keep just that simple operation there. I like to have this done a little bit more elegantly, I guess, than this, and I guess one of the crude way, one of the better ways actually, is to actually, once you've done a knot at the end of your stay rope, put a bit of heat shrink sleeving over it like this and just tidy it up a little bit. That's one way of doing it. You still have this fairly rough and ready knot at the end of it, I guess. Or another way, yet again, the way I normally like to do it is just to take a piece of stay wire that's been measured out to the right length. With a piece of heat shrink sleeving, fold the end back in this, get the length that I want, and then with a heat shrink gun, carefully shrink that sleeve down there. Make sure that it's a glue line sleeve, because the glue line sleeve actually melts and actually sticks to the paracord, and does a really nice job. You've got to be a little careful in that, you know, too much heat and you'll destroy your paracord as well. But if you just keep the heat right, you'll get yourself a lovely joint like that. And so here we go. That's now ready to use. I've done this other end as well. That's ready to use with a stake at one end up to your the DXCommander. That really works well. Now, connecting it onto the DXCommander at the other end, you have your plastic plate. And Callum very kindly provides you a whole lot of these nice little plastic carabiner type things. Please don't use those when for your stay wires. They're not intended for that. These are intended to go onto the bungee cords and so on like that, to put tension on the elements. Read the instructions, you'll find out that these are not intended for your stay wires. Instead, go down to your local hardware and buy yourself some a card of these little carabiners. They're absolutely brilliant, and I have them here on the end of my stay wires and so on like that. So that goes on the and clips onto your plastic spacer, and that acts as your guy wire. That's good and strong, will not break, and does the job really perfectly. Now here's a little tip onto as to how to keep all your stay wires and so on like that into some sort of order instead of a mess. I like to do a figure of 8 around my thumb and my little finger like this. Then that last little bit, wrap it around and through the hole. Done. That fits into my bag really nicely. Another one I've done just here. So just wrap it up like I had a figure of 8, and the last little bit in and around through the hole like that. Done. Now when it comes to actually deploying these, just take that out and drop it, and it comes out perfectly, no tangles at all, every time a coconut. So again, I normally start from the carabiner end, wrap them up. Under and through the hole. Done. Once I got them all the carabiners together, there'll be the stays together. There'll be 3 of them. I just simply take the 3, put them together like that. I have a piece of, what do you call it? Gal behind the camera's telling me Velcro, Velcro, Velcro. Yes, Velcro tape. Take a bit of Velcro, shove that around there like that, and that keeps that as a nice and tidy little, there my stay wires. Done. Moving on now to the ground radials. Calliman nowadays with the DXCommander is supplying DX10. This is D10. It's a little bit stiffer than the DX10, but it makes perfect radials indeed. What I like to do on the end of each of my radials is to put a little loop, as you see, like this. Fold the end of the radial back 20-30 centimeters, millimeters. Put a bit of heat shrink on it, like that, so that when I'm deploying the radials, the radials connect to the plate, to the grounding plate, then string out each of the radials, and I like to hold them in place and peg them in place with one of these aluminium pegs. Makes for a really, really neat install, and it stops people from tripping over your guy wires. It's just so easy just to deploy it, and then when you're finished, out comes the stake. And then winding up the radials again is simply a case of starting from this end where I've got the spade connector and also a nice piece of glue-lined heat shrink there, just to basically keep this whole joint weatherproof, really. And it's just a case of just winding up this DX. The D10 actually has quite a bit of memory to it, and it will wrap up quite nicely if you just allow the wire to take its own course. The DX10 that has been supplied now, you'll have no trouble at all. It's almost tangle proof. I defy anybody to try and tangle the DX10. I just shove that through a couple of times, and that's the way in which I treat my radials. Makes very nice and neat and easy to handle. Now, in one of my other videos, I showed you my soil drill for mounting up the DXCommander Expedition model. That's a little handle there. It's got a chamfer on one end, and that acts as a drill into the earth. And once I've got that into the earth sufficiently, probably down to about this level, the DXCommander Expedition fits very, very neatly over the top of this. And you can raise your pole in the DXCommander Expedition pole in the wind without needing somebody else to try and help you with guys. And that's just a really good way of self-help getting your guys up. It acts as another nice little tool that I found as well. I normally stow all my my guy wires in the end of the tube. Well, it did fit. They fit in this end of the tube. Come on. Always when you're on camera and it doesn't work, have you noticed that? So they fit in there. Come on, you've been in there before, you know you can get in there, so that's fine. I take my handle, put that in first, and then I put all the pegs that I require for the job and the other end. That's a very nice, neat package which slips into my backpack. Well, on that side, and there we go. I've got the DXCommander and this little bowl in my backpack. Everything nicely tidied away, ready to go. So that's another little tip, a little hint, what I do. Let's have a look at the elements, shall we, or one of the elements. I've got some DX10 here. It's still on a reel, but when I go to prepare my elements, I do want to operate a little bit of power at times. Now, there has been the odd comment that if we just have a straight wire at the end of the element like that, say your 20 meter element, your 40 meter element, and you just cut it straight off like this. If you're operating QRO, I guess in excess of, say, 500 watts, I'd say, it is possible to get a corona off the end of the wire, and that then can well, a corona is not good anyway. There's a tremendous amount of heat created in a corona. It can melt things. So what I do to get around that is a couple of things. First thing is heat shrink sleeving goes on first. Then I have some little they've been molded eyelets, like so, and I will put that over the end of the wire, and so instead of it coming to a point, it actually is rounded off like this. The way in which I do that is I will strip off a bit of wire, measure out where I want this to terminate, right there. Fold this around that eyelet, and then wind it back on itself, like so. And so it terminates like so. I then pull up the heat shrink sleeving, again shrink that down, and that there makes a very, very nice termination for the end of your elements if you're operating high power. Now this won't corona because you've effectively increased the surface area of the wire, made it almost into like a ball, and that decreases the likelihood of a corona. That goes on the end of each element. If it's the 20 meter element and doesn't quite get up to the plate, then of course your little where do I put them? One of these carabiners you can actually put into, or like that onto the bungee cord, and that'll tension the wire for you. Works really, really well. Just a suggestion, as I say, for those that are going to operate a little bit of high power, you might like to take that precaution. You may not find it necessary, to be honest, but just a little tip. Okay, those are just a few tips that that I use when I'm out and about using the DXCommander. As I say, I've got the Expedition model is one I predominantly use when I'm out and about. But those little tips that we've gone through certainly make life a lot easier as far as deploying the antenna, getting the antenna up and running in very quick time, and certainly pulling it down again. It's a real breeze. Everything is just, as I say, packed up. I pack it all away into this tube, and it's there all ready to go for next time. And the more practice you get at doing this, putting them up and down and not having to cut wires each time you go out, or cut lengths of radials each time you go out, or cut the guy wires each time you go out, certainly makes life a lot easier. Listen, if these tips are of any use to you and you find it helpful, subscribe to the channel, would you? And that helps me a little bit. Apparently YouTube likes seeing subscriptions come along. It helps the algorithm and ultimately helps me, I think. Yeah, I'm not quite sure about that one. Cheers for now. Catch you later.